Alright, welcome to the next episode. Jumping right in. Got the springs today. So, we went with it's Godspeed Traction. They're lowering springs. They're going to drop this about 1.5 inches. So let's jump right into it. I already have the car jacked up, got the wheel off. And behind here, I'm going to help out with a light here. You got two 19mm on each side here, so you need 2 wrenches. You got a 12mm there. I'm not sure what size was supposed to be there, because obviously it's missing. Up on top here, this is your camber bolt. You're going to want to mark the position of this. If you can see, yeah, you can see it. I just took a oil Sharpie. I just made 2 marks on there so I can make sure I get it lined up right. And I said this is just so you make sure your camber goes back exactly the way it was. I saved the headphone users by not filming when I took these nuts off, but turns out I probably didn't need to spray them. They actually came off pretty easy with the impact. Up top here then, answer the question I didn't know from last time. This is a 12mm bolt. Take these ones off, it'll loosen up the top here, and then once I have the top loose, I'm going to knock these out. So this bottom one's proven to be quite a bitch. So I had to put a breaker bar on it and use the bar from my jack just to get this side to spin. And now, I put the nut back on so I can hit this end with a mallet, and it's just not budging. This one came out, so I'll show you why it's important to mark this one here real quick. If you look at it from this end, you can see back here, it's got like a little lobe on it. I mean, when you turn this, it'll move this top in and out just a little bit and adjust your camber. So that's why you mark that one, just so you make sure you get it back in the right spot. After a battle, I got it. What I ended up having to do, I only have one floor jack, but I have a transmission jack. So I put it under here and just lifted it up a little bit, take some of the pressure off, and then I was able to knock it out of there. So when you do go this bolts out, you'll wiggle it out of there a little bit to get it off of its seat. You already loosened it from up top there, so it'll drop out. Then you got your whole strut tower out. In my case, I have these little caps on top here. Pull that off. Underneath here is a 17mm, and then I believe that's a 6mm Allen in there. The point of that is when you take these off, you want your spring compressors here. Otherwise, this thing is gonna shoot and fly off and kill the family cat or something like that. But when you compress these springs, sometimes it takes off enough pressure from this nut that it doesn't actually loosen, it just spins the whole assembly. So that's where the 6mm comes in place. If that happens, I need to go get some wrenches. I'm going to try to compress this spring and take that nut off. And when you do these spring compressors, I got to move this one, but try to get the highest and the lowest that you can, just to compress it that much more easier. I got the spring compressed on both sides here. Now, here's hoping I can go in with the impact and get this off. But let's find out if I have to go get a wrench or not. Yep, and I can see, if you can see as well, that it's just spinning the entire thing. So, we're going to take a pause on this video here right now, and I have to go get some wrenches. Look at my bad here. It's 3 days later right now, full disclosure. But, all you missed off video is putting the spring on, getting the old one off. So what I ended up getting to do this, I said I needed that tool. I got this open-ended ratchet. Comes with multiple different sizes. You just click it in there, and then you can get your 6mm Allen head through there, and you get this off. Put the new one on, just make sure you get it seated exactly where it should be, both on the top and the bottom. And then looking at the comparison of springs here, you can see the difference here. And I'll make sure I film better putting it back in and doing the other side, so you guys don't miss out on that one. There's not really going to be a good way to film this, I don't think. But let's get this back in here. So before I'm doing this, I went ahead and sprayed either side of the knuckle here with some white lithium grease, as well as this bottom bolt that I had such a hard time getting out. You know, just to give it hopefully a fighting chance to get back in there. So, just gonna do this a little bit, work that grease into the hole. It's already going a lot easier. Alright, like I said, make sure you got this seated right. And what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna get the top in first, and I'm gonna go up top here. I'm gonna finger tighten those bolts to get it to not drop on me. Oh, use some muscles. Come on, you bitch. Up top, I got the studs through. Like I said, I just did a finger tightening just to, make sure this isn't going to drop as I'm trying to wrestle in the knuckle here. So now, get that knuckle back in there. Let me see how we're on there. I'm going to quick take, there's a little bit of rust in there, so I'm just going to quick take this brush here, knock some of that off. Like I said, I already sprayed the knuckle with grease, but we'll give it as good of a fighting chance as we can. Alright. Slide that back in there. I'm going to try to get the camber bolt in first, since it looks like that's the one that I have an easier chance of getting right now. Alright, we got that camber bolt in. Now my bottom one should line up. Give it a tap here. And we're in. Alright, then remember I said you gotta get this camber bolt back in the same spot. I marked it in 2 spots just to be sure I get it lined up. So I got a mark there on the bolt, and a mark there on the bolt, and it'll focus. Mark there, and a mark there on the strut. Okay, that's lined up. All that's left, get your nuts back on this side, put all your hoses and sensors back where they should be, then tighten these down the rest of the way, get the wheel on, and we'll see how much we dropped. Moment of truth, let's drop it down. That's where we're at. And that's where we were at. So that's the front. So the other front one, I'm just going to do off camera real quick because, you saw the install, most of the removal of it. So the rear one, I'll just go more in depth and show more what I was doing with changing the spring. Doing the back, this is going to be a difference between the wagon and the sedan. For the wagon, there's a cover on here. Take that off. Underneath here is your 3 bolts for the top of the strut tower. On the sedan, you're going to have to pull out the entire back seat, and it's going to be down a little farther here. Back by the wheel, it's similar to the front. You got 2 on each side here. Looks a little rustier back here, so I'm probably going to have a bigger challenge. What's happening right now is an act of desperation. So the car is flipped around, I couldn't get this bottom bolt off earlier when I was working on it, and I had a work thing I had to get to, so took a pause, put the tires back on, flipped the car around so it's easier to work on the back. But anyway, so this bottom bolt here is impossible to get to without taking out the axle, like impossible to get to with an impact. I should correct myself. But so I got a box end on there, and it just started rounding off the nut. So pieced it all back together, and what I was going to do is clamp that on there like I did as a last ditch effort before I got a nut splitter. So I got that on there. I got a breaker bar on this side, got the pipe, and it is spinning. Think fuck. So I'm gonna keep spinning that, get this nut off of there. We'll see how bad that's chewed up. I'll probably end up getting a new nut for that. Victory. So yeah, you can see where it was just rounding off and I had the box wrench on there. And you can see why. I mean, this bolt is pretty rusty anyway, so I might just find a replacement for this just to be easy. This series is going to start sounding like an ad for Harbor Freight. It's really not, but I got this at Harbor Freight, this impact, and this has been a lifesaver for so many things right now. It's, you know, a fraction of the cost of Milwaukee, and there's been videos comparing the two, and this is just as good, if not better, in certain areas. So definitely recommend this. Got both of those bolts out. One thing to note that's different from the front, again, this top one is not a camber bolt, so there's no need to mark that. The next step here is getting this brake line out. So it's got the normal little clip that you gotta hammer out. The next step is getting this brake line out. So there's that little metal clip on the bottom side here. Sorry, my hand puts out of focus. On the bottom side there. And you gotta tap it out of there. You know, a flathead screwdriver and a hammer from the bottom there works just fine to get that out. And then your brake line comes out. From here, what I'm gonna do, and I need two hands to do it, so I'm gonna have to put the camera down. We're gonna take the whole shock, push it that way to get it off the knuckle, and then it'll just drop out from the top. And this is the joys of living in Wisconsin. Everything is rusty. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the front before I take the spring off, or before I put it back in, either one. And I'm going to just use that wire brush, knock off a bunch of this rust, spray it all with grease. But right now we are going to compress this spring, get that 17mm open-ended one on here, and 6mm in the middle. I didn't film this for you last time. I'm going to try to film it for you this time. We're taking that nut off. I said it's pretty simple, self-explanatory, but I didn't show it. So here we go. Like I said, you got your open-ended socket here. Get it on there. Make sure you got it turning the right way. Then get your 6mm Allen head in the middle and just start going to town on it. And this is not spinning. Why is that not spinning? And about 6 hours later, I got that loosened enough. Get that nut off. Whoops. Get your little top hat off. Keep those together. And then your whole spring lifts off. Still be careful taking the compressors off of here, because it might slip off and spring back at you. These ones I feel a little more confident with because they have these little arms here that hold it on, but if you get ones that don't have that, they can slip off and still spring back at you. Putting the new ones in for the rear, make sure you get it facing the right way. If you see on the rear ones, they're tapered towards the top here. Just make sure you get that smaller end on the top, and you know, just like the front ones, make sure you get it seated right in the bottom and the top. I'm going to compress this one. We'll get that on there. Okay, got the new one compressed, got it seated in the bottom, got it seated in the top. I gotta do the same thing to tighten this, unfortunately. So I'm gonna do that. I'll be back when it's done. Only thing left now is to put it all back in the exact opposite order. I'm not gonna show it just because I did it on the front and you saw me uninstall it. But like I did on the front, I greased everything up, greased up the bolts, greased up every place where the knuckle goes in. Up here where it's very rusty for whatever reason, I'm not going to be able to obviously hold it from the bottom and finger tighten the top. So we'll do this differently. We'll put in the bottom bolts, like we'll get it through the top, we'll put in the bottom bolts, and then we'll go back in the car and we'll tighten it all up. And on that note, this is where I'm going to end off this video. I'm going to do the other side off camera again like I did with the front. In the background, bodywork continues. I got to clean this up a little bit, but I sanded it all up and I just wanted to, because I had some bare metal, get a little paint on it. So spent probably like 2 hours just sanding this corner right here. This is why I didn't film it for you guys, because you would have hated me. But yeah, spent about 2 hours sanding it all the way down to like 1,000 grit. Sprayed it with primer, sanded that with 1,000 again just to get the roughness out of it, and then sprayed it with some color match paint. Like I said, I still got to clean up this, but otherwise, that's what the look is going to be. I'm happy with it. Let's go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below. Stay tuned for more small garage adventures. I'll see you on the next one.